Welcome back to Coach Craig's Sports. Today's Tuesday, so we're going to be doing the waiver wire episode today. And with that being said, this is week 7, so we're a pretty good chunk of the way into the season now. In most leagues, you're probably playing 13 weeks before the playoffs. So this is about the halfway point, just when you're starting to learn a little bit more about your team, what moves you need to make, and if there's guys you need to pick up, fill holes, especially given bye weeks. Now, without further ado, we'll get into it. This week's waiver wire is not the greatest in the world, honestly, but there are some interesting names out there that we will talk about. Probably not as many guys as some of the other weeks, though. So we'll get started with the quarterback position. I got 2 quarterbacks so far for this week. Derek Carr is one. He had a bye last week. Owned in about 29% of ESPN leagues, 26% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against Tampa Bay in week 7, so it's not the best matchup in the world. You've seen what they did against Aaron Rodgers, but Derek Carr is definitely somebody you can pick up, stash on your bench, and play in the right matchups. Maybe you rotate him in and out with a different quarterback. I will say somebody that didn't make this list is Ryan Tannehill. If he's out there in your league, go get him because he's been great since he's been the starter in Tennessee. You can pretty much play him week in and week out, but he's over 50%, so I didn't want to mention him in this video. Then our other quarterback that we got is Jimmy Garopollo. He is 23 out of 33, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions this past week, and 8 rushing yards as well. 29.52 fantasy points and 6 point per passing touchdown leagues. He's only owned in about a quarter of leagues, 23% ESPN, 27% in Yahoo. Goes against the Patriots this week. So it's not the best matchup in the world, honestly, but he's definitely a guy that he looked pretty good last week. Looks like he's starting to get healthy. All the pieces around him are kind of starting to get healthy, minus Raheem Mostert at this point. So their offense could start clicking. He should have some good weeks ahead. If you're trying to stream quarterbacks, maybe when he has good matchups, you can play him as well. Then we'll move over to the running back position. First guy we're going to mention is Mical Perine with the New York Jets. Le'Veon Bell obviously got cut, so it's going to be Perine and Frank Gore. Perine actually saw 58% of the snaps. I believe Gore was closer to 35% of the snaps. So that's a good sign to see here. He has 7 carries for 27 yards, 3 targets, 2 receptions for 9 yards, 5.6 fantasy points. So he didn't do a lot with the volume he was given. But look for his workload to keep increasing as the weeks go on. He's owned in about 19% of ESPN leagues, 20% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against a decent matchup in Buffalo this week. And Buffalo, if you watched that game yesterday, they gave up quite a few rushing yards to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So maybe Perine's a guy that can expose that as well. We didn't really talk about the fab yet, but the quarterbacks, I probably wouldn't spend more than $3 fab. Perine's probably a guy you can probably spend about up to like $5 or 5% of your budget fab-wise on him. He's a guy that could pan out later in the year. He's probably not somebody you need to play this week, but if you're really desperate, you probably could. Next up, we got Boston Scott. So Miles Sanders left the game in week 6 with an injury. It was either a knee or an ankle. I kind of heard a little bit of both. Scott played 49% of snaps in this game. He had 2 carries for 4 yards, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 5 yards receiving, 2.9 fantasy points. So not a lot of production. But if he's the main back this week, especially against the Giants defense that they're playing, that isn't the greatest in the world. He could end up having some value being a running back 2 flex play viable like that. 12% owned in ESPN leagues, 15% owned in Yahoo leagues. They do play on Thursday night, so it's less likely that Miles Sanders will play. Boston Scott's probably somebody you can get. He's probably going to be like a starter for like a week, maybe next week as well. I probably won't spend over 10% of my fab budget on him, though. But if you need a starter this week, he's definitely someone to consider. Then we got somebody in a similar situation, Gus Edwards. Mark Ingram left the game in week 6, had an ankle injury. Gus Edwards played on 44% of the snaps, which led the backfield overall. He had 14 carries, which was the most of any Ravens running back. 26 yards, 1 touchdown. So not the greatest yards per carry, 8.6 fantasy points, owned in 2% of ESPN leagues, 3% of Yahoo leagues. They do have a bye this week, though, so that's something to keep in mind. He might be a guy to monitor more going into week 8, but if you can get him now and kind of monitor the situation, because if Mark Ingram misses, Gus Edwards could have a bigger uptick, especially in this Baltimore Ravens running game. Then we got J.D. McKissick. He mentioned him last week as well. He played on 53% of snaps this past week. 8 carries for 41 yards, so pretty effective there. 6 targets, 6 receptions for 43 yards as well. So overall, he had 84 total yards. He's a good guy for PPR, a good plug and play if you need somebody like that. 14.4 fantasy points, owned in 33% of ESPN leagues and only 14% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against Dallas this week, who honestly was pretty bad against Kenyon Drake yesterday. So maybe this is a game that Gibson and McKissick can take advantage of. Or if they're behind, McKissick could see a lot of targets as well. He's been one of the most targeted running backs in the league this year. So he's definitely a guy worth picking up in PPR. You can probably spend like 5 to 7% of your fab budget if you haven't already picked him up. Then we'll move over to the wide receiver position. We'll start with Tim Patrick. He's probably one of my favorite guys this week. A lot of the guys we had last week, a lot of the guys that we could probably talk about again, are over that 50% threshold. So your Travis Fulghams, your Trace Claypools, T. Higgins, Laviska Shenault, people like that. So we're not going to mention them. If they're out there in your league, you can consider them as well. So Patrick played on 92% of the snaps this past week, 8 targets once again, 4 receptions, 101 yards. So he's pretty good overall, 14.1 fantasy points. He's owned in 27% of ESPN leagues, 18% of Yahoo leagues. So there's a good chance he's out there in your league. Goes against Kansas City this week. Kansas City has been really hit or miss against the wide receivers and quarterbacks. Obviously, you've seen them play pretty well against Josh Allen, but the week before, Derek Carr was able to light him up. So Tim Patrick is definitely somebody that could take advantage in this matchup. He's honestly a very talented wide receiver. A lot of people probably don't know about him, but he's 6'5". He's got pretty good quickness, pretty good hands, pretty good body control. In Denver, he's pretty much the number one wide receiver. If Noah Fant doesn't play again, he should have another good week. Then we got Mike Williams. So he had a bye last week, so these are his stats from the week before. Played on 77% of snaps, 8 targets, 5 receptions, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns, 27.9 fantasy points. He's owned in about 50% of ESPN and Yahoo leagues, so 50-50 chance he's out there. Goes against Jacksonville in week 7. Could be a very good matchup for him. If he's out there, you can definitely grab him. Probably like 5 to 7% of your fab budget once again. Then we got the guy on the opposite side of that matchup, Keelan Cole. Played on 75% of snaps this past week. 9 targets, 6 receptions, 143 yards, 20.3 fantasy points overall. Owned in 20% of ESPN leagues, 29% of Yahoo leagues. So a pretty good chance that he's still out there. Goes against the Chargers defense, which they've been pretty hit or miss this year, honestly. And DJ Chark's probably going to get covered by Casey Hayward. We'll see if Desmond King follows Laviska Shenault around. So it could be a matchup that favors Keelan Cole in this one. He's shown good rapport with Gardner Minshew. So it could be a decent matchup for him, especially if they get behind early. Then somebody that probably not a lot of people are actually talking about this week on waiver wires is Demarcus Robinson. He played on 95% of snaps for the Chiefs this past week. Saw 6 targets, 5 receptions, 69 yards, 11.9 fantasy points. If I remember correctly, Sammy Watkins is supposed to be out for a couple weeks now. Obviously, McCole Hardman did not see his snap share increase, but Robinson did. That's a very positive sign for Robinson and makes him intriguing to me as well. Then he's only owned in 2% of ESPN leagues, 1% of Yahoo leagues, so there's a good chance he's out there. Denver's defense was pretty good against the Patriots last week, but they're not that great overall, so this could be a matchup that Robinson is able to succeed in as well. Once again, with Kansas City, any wide receiver can pretty much have a big day, so if you need somebody to plug and play, that's probably not going to hurt you, but could end up having a touchdown, kind of having a good game, Robinson could be your guy in this one. And he's probably worth, probably up to 3% of your fab budget. Then we got Alshon Jeffery, who has not played yet so far this year. He's owned in 16% of ESPN leagues, 15% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Giants on Thursday night. We'll have to see if he ends up playing. But he's probably a guy that's worth up to 5% of your fab budget. He could help you, but just kind of tamper your expectations the first couple weeks that he's back. Then we'll move over to tight end position. So tight end position has been pretty barren so far this year, especially on waiver wires. But this week we got a couple different guys to talk about. So first off is Trey Burton. Like I said, he was my start of the week last week. He played on 56% of the snaps. So a little bit of an uptick. Still trailing Jack Doyle for the Colts. But he saw 5 targets, 4 receptions, 58 yards, 1 touchdown. He had a carry for 1 yard and a touchdown as well. 21.9 fantasy points. He's actually only owned in 10% of ESPN leagues. That was a little bit of a typo. But 22% of Yahoo leagues. He does have a bye this week, so if you're picking him up, you're not going to be able to start him this week. But he could have a good role in this offense moving forward. So I'd say he's probably like 3% of your fab budget. The bye being this week obviously hurts him, and he's not going to be able to help your team out right away. But if you're looking for a bye week filler tight end, if you're looking for somebody playing favorable matchups, he could be your guy. Then we got Darren Fells. He played on 88% of the snaps for the Texans this past week. Jordan Akins was out once again. I will have to see if he keeps missing, but Fells had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 85 yards, 1 touchdown. 20.5 fantasy points. He's owned in only 5% of ESPN leagues, 6% of Yahoo leagues, so there's a good chance he's out there. He goes against the Green Bay Packers in week 7. And the Packers didn't look too good against Rob Gronkowski at tight end. Darren Fells has a similar build to Gronkowski. He's big, tall, not the fastest in the world, so maybe he presents a problem for the Packers defense as well. So he's definitely somebody to look out for, especially if Jordan Akins misses once again. He's probably somebody that you only want to spend like 2% of your fab budget on, because he's not going to have a long sustained role, but at the same time, he's definitely a guy you can plug and play when he's starting. Then we got Anthony Firkser, who had a big week, mainly due to Jonnu Smith rolling his ankle. Played on 55% of snaps, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 113 yards, 1 touchdown. And he had 25.3 fantasy points, only owned in 0.2% of ESPN leagues, 1% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against Pittsburgh Steelers defense in week 7. It's not the best matchup in the world, but he's probably a guy that's worth 1 to 2% of your fab budget. I probably would try to see if you could get him after waivers clear, but you might have to throw $1 or $2 at him. But if Jonnu Smith misses, he's definitely somebody that you can start in a pinch. Then last but not least, we got Richard Rodgers. He played on 60% of snaps this past week. Zach Ertz got hurt. He's going to be out for a couple weeks now. And Dallas Goedert's been out with that broken ankle. So he's going to be out once again as well. And Rodgers saw 3 targets, 3 receptions, 31 yards, 6.1 fantasy points, owned in 0.1% of ESPN leagues, 0% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Giants this week. So he's going to be their starting tight end. And just based on that, he should have some value. He's probably a guy you can play, and he's not going to kill you, but just don't expect too much out of him, especially if you're a really tight end needy team. But he definitely has upside in this matchup, especially when he's going to get all his playing time. Another name to keep in mind would be Hakeem Butler. He's actually a wide receiver for the Cardinals, and the Eagles brought him in and changed him to tight end now, so he could see a little bit of run in this game as well. But Rodgers is probably going to get the most amount of work. Then last but not least, we got defenses to consider for week 7. So Kansas City is the first one for me. They're owned in 44% of ESPN leagues, which is pretty good there. So there's a good chance they're out there. But in Yahoo, they're owned in 81% of leagues. So they're probably not out there in Yahoo leagues, but just take a look out there. They go against Denver in week 7. Denver, while they did win against the Patriots, Drew Lock did not look good. He didn't play very good last year against Kansas City either. So it could be a good matchup for Kansas City's defense. Then we got the LA Chargers. They're owned in 21% of ESPN leagues, 28% of Yahoo leagues. Go against Jacksonville in week 7. Jacksonville's a little banged up. They haven't looked the greatest. They weren't able to put up too many points against a poor Lions defense. The Chargers defense is obviously better, so they could have a good matchup in this one as well. Then last but not least, we have the Philadelphia Eagles defense. They're owned in 16% of ESPN leagues, 32% of Yahoo leagues. They go against the Giants this week in week 7. And Daniel Jones has been known to get a turnover or two. The Eagles defense is middle of the pack, more or less. So they could have a good matchup in this one and be able to create some turnovers. But pretty much with all these defenses, you're looking at spending, like 1 to 2% of your fab budget. Maybe for Kansas City, you could spend up to like 4%. But with streaming defenses, you don't want to spend too much of your fab budget overall. But with that being said, that's all we got for the waiver wire video today. Hopefully these were some decent names for you guys to consider. If you guys have any other questions about guys that are available on waivers in your league, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I'll let you know what I think. If you guys need any help figuring out who to pick up, who to drop, anything like that, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's in the comments, at my email at Coach Craig Sports, on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, or on the Coach Craig Sports Facebook page. I'd be glad to help you guys. And with that being said, if you guys liked and enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel or haven't yet done so, please consider subscribing as well. It helps build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports. And if you are a new or current subscriber who has yet to do so, also hit that little notification bell down below. By doing so, it'll let you know every single time that I post up a video. If you guys are new to my videos, post up 5 videos a week. Monday is the top performers. Tuesday was waiver wires. Wednesday is the Thursday night preview for the Thursday night football game. And Thursday is DFS values for DraftKings. Friday is looking at every other matchup. And then we do a live stream on Sunday if I'm able to do so. But with that being said, that's pretty much all we got for today. Hope you guys all enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day.